Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted. From Packers.com, I am Mike Spofford, joined by my partner in all things Packers, Wes Hodkowitz. Coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to preview Sunday's matchup at Lambeau Field. It will be between the Packers and the Bengals. It is a 3:25 p.m. Central Time kickoff. The Bengals come in to Green Bay at 2-3. And Wes, on our last show, we talked about all these different possibilities at quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. One possibility we didn't consider, however, was that the Bengals would trade with their in-state, in-division rival Cleveland Browns for Joe Flacco, just so people understand. So we recorded our last show on Tuesday morning, and a couple of hours later, as our wonderful producer Hannah was putting the finishing touches on it, getting the episode posted, was when the news broke that the Cincinnati Bengals had traded for Joe Flacco, whom the Packers, of course, faced as the quarterback of the Browns just a few weeks ago. Then on Wednesday, Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, said they are starting Joe Flacco against the Packers. Short week, cramped preparation, all of that. But the Packers are going to see the same quarterback for a different team within the span of a month. As I like to say, just when you think you've seen it all in this league, they play another game.
It's crazy, Mike. The fact that nothing like this has happened in the last 30 years is just mind-boggling. So in terms of a player being traded within the division, in season,
yeah,
it's not happened since at least 1955. The NFL, 1995. The NFL has unbelievable resources. Not even they could find anything in the last 30 years, but then even had to hedge it because it's just so rare that you see anything like this happen. And I believe it was a statistic from ESPN Stats and Info that said this is the third time a team has even traded a quarterback within a division, a starting quarterback within a division, in the 21st century, the last 25 years. And I think it was Donovan McNabb was the one. If you go back to 99, it was Rodney Peete going from Philly to Washington. And then there was one other example that's escaping my mind. Oh, Drew Bledsoe, the Brady and Bledsoe trade back in 2001 when they set the table for the Tom Brady era. This stuff doesn't happen, is the point that I'm trying to raise here.
Right.
Now, I think Matt LaFleur had a really good headspace on this when he was talking about this with the media, because a lot of people were asking, and it's obviously a big topic, and it was in our Insider Inbox column and everything else, how does this change things? In a lot of ways, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Because from the Packers' perspective, it's still Zach Taylor's offense. There's still the same weapons that they had before. It's a different conductor behind all of this. And realistically, as Evan Williams, in a humble way but also factual way, said, Packers had some success against Flacco in that game against Cleveland. They didn't lose that game against Cleveland because of Joe Flacco.
No.
You reset the board, but at the end of the day, it's still a very similar game plan.
Yeah, and for those who are interested in the history lesson, so the last time the Packers faced the same quarterback for two different teams in the same season was 2011, when Kyle Orton early in the year was with the Denver Broncos and came into Lambeau Field. The Packers won that game. And then late in the season, he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then he was actually the quarterback of that Kansas City team that ruined Green Bay's undefeated record late in 2011. Mm-hmm. And what we've heard, it's been reported in several areas, the only quarterback anybody could find in league history, basically, or at least I should say in, I guess you'd say, the somewhat modern era of the NFL, to beat the same team twice in the same season as a quarterback of two different teams was Jack Kemp back in the old AFL in 1962. He beat the New York Titans as the quarterback of both the Chargers and the Bills, 1962 AFL action. So Jack Kemp, who then went on to become a member of cabinet in Washington and member of Congress and all that kind of stuff, led quite a life. Anyway.
A lot of superlatives for that man.
Yes. But getting back to the here and now with the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Flacco will be the quarterback. As you said, the weapons the Bengals have don't change. And the two that, of course, jump off the page is that 1-2 punch at wide receiver, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They have combined for 5 touchdown catches, despite Cincinnati's struggles on offense with Jake Browning. The Bengals have 8 touchdown passes as an offense, and those two guys have 5 of them. And they're a handful for any secondary to deal with, and certainly Zach Taylor is counting on Joe Flacco to, number one, protect the football better than Jake Browning did, but then number two, come up with ways to get his weapons the football more often to see if they can make some plays and jumpstart this Cincinnati team.
Yeah, I was saying in our Insider Inbox column, second time I've dropped that in 6 minutes, that this seems to me like this move to acquire Flacco is a pretty good indication of they just want to get the ball in Higgins and Chase's hands and just see what happens.
That's exactly how I feel about it, too.
Yeah, because like we were talking with Evan Williams, and Evan Williams was fantastic. Xavier McKinney talked on this as well. But, Evan Williams was saying, he's like, Browning was averaging 2 picks a game during his tenure there. It's not like Flacco's been protecting the ball great. He has 6 picks. Those are 2 of the top 3 most intercepted quarterbacks through the first month of the season. But I think what Cincinnati's looking for is someone that is going to take chances with the ball, but also give receivers a little bit better of a chance as well. I mean, if you look at the clips from Browning, particularly in that Detroit game, it wasn't great. There were some of those 500 scramble balls that were thrown up there, not even 50-50, more like 25-75 it seemed like, tilting towards the favor of the defense. So with Flacco coming in, it really seems to me like, okay, can we get Chase going? Can we get Higgins going? And then maybe that's what breathes some life into the rest of this thing, Mike, because right now it ain't looking good for the Cincinnati Bengals. You are talking presently about the last ranked total offense in the National Football League, 228 yards per game, the 32nd ranked, also last ranked rushing offense in the game. Michael, the Cincinnati Bengals right now are averaging 57 yards per game rushing the ball.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is second to last with 80 yards rushing per game. Chase Brown has had no room with which to work. Samari Pirine has had a little bit more success, but they don't have a carry over 13 yards this season, and it was Jake Browning was the one that did it. This really comes back to Jamar Chase still finding ways to make an impact with the ball, and as Evan Williams said, he's a yak monster. He gets the pass, but it's what he does with the ball after the catch. His ability to run upfield, it almost is like he turns into a running back in some regards. T. Higgins has had kind of a hard time getting going here since the extension, but also still a guy you have to be wary of. If the Cincinnati Bengals are going to accomplish anything during this interim basis here, or however long this goes without Joe Burrow, if they're going to keep this ship afloat, it has to be through those 2 running backs.
Yeah, they've just been
receivers. Sorry.
Yeah, they've just been lacking. They've been lacking the big plays, and not just on the ground. Chase Brown only averaging 2.5 yards per carry on the season. It has been a really tough slog. But even you look at Chase and Higgins at wide receiver. Chase is averaging 11.7 yards per catch. Higgins 12.2. That is not what they are used to. And that 11.7 for Chase includes a 64-yard touchdown last week against the Lions when he got behind the defense in the fourth quarter and was able to make one of those big plays. So
the game was completely out of hand too at that point.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, not to call it a garbage time touchdown, but it was a lapse for Detroit in which didn't really truly matter.
But even then, he has a 64-yard touchdown. Yet for the season, he's averaging only 11 yards per catch, which is not typical Jamar Chase numbers. So they've been lacking the explosive plays. They've been lacking the typical threat to the defense that those guys have been because Joe Burrow is not the quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, it's been a struggling unit there as well. The last 3 games, the Cincinnati Bengals have surrendered 48, 28, and 37 points. The star on that defensive side is edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. He's got 4 sacks on the season. He is still a handful for anybody to deal with, can make a play at any time. But the Bengals failed to make the playoffs last year because of their defense. And this is not a defense that has improved at all. They hemmed and hawed all offseason about whether to pay Trey Hendrickson when he's holding out. I mean, he's their best defensive player on a bad defense, and they still weren't sure if they wanted to pay the guy. So their defense isn't any better. And we'll get to our keys to victory in a minute here, but my whole thing all week long that I've said it in multiple forums here, multiple platforms, Wes, is that this game isn't even about the Cincinnati Bengals. This game is all about the Green Bay Packers. This is about the Packers coming back home, playing their game, doing their thing. I don't care if it's Joe Flacco at quarterback. Yes, you have to concern yourself with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. Those are the stars of the Cincinnati Bengals, so you can't just ignore them. But this is about the Packers getting back to who the Packers are, who they believe they can be. The Packers team that we saw, for the most part, in that 5-day span to open the regular season against two really good football teams when they posted wins over the Lions and the Commanders. If the Packers get back to that squad, they shouldn't have any trouble with the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the bottom line.
I agree, Mike. That is the number one thing that I look at with this game. For the Packers, everything is set up. It's on the table for you here, particularly when you look at the fact that Zach Tom and Aaron Banks have both been back at practice this week on a limited basis. Signs are looking promising, particularly with Banks, as far as what Sunday looks like right now. You have a lot of positive vibes, I think, around this team, understanding, okay, we let these two opportunities go, but I don't think the confidence has diminished at all. I think the Packers very much feel like they could be 4-0 right now. And honestly, the way that the Cowboys played against the Jets probably reinforces that, they probably played a pretty good team and didn't do enough to solve Dak Prescott, but it's not like they went in there and just completely, made an embarrassment of themselves. But when I was looking at the Cincinnati defense, in addition to the fact that I think they're 30th right now in total defense this season, Trey Hendrickson, 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. Do you know who's second right now for the Cincinnati Bengals in quarterback hits?
No.
TJ Slayton. And I love TJ. He's the man. He was a good run stuffer in Green Bay. They did not sign TJ Slayton in the offseason to be pressuring the
not
quarterback.
To rush the passer. No, that was not his forte in Green Bay and was not what he got that contract for.
I don't have, when you're in the next segment, I'm going to look and see how many quarterback hits TJ had in his time in Green Bay. I think he had a sack or two, but
he was hardly on the field on third down in
that
his
helps,
defense,
yeah.
but the Packers used him for a specific role.
So it is good to see TJ doing that, but if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, that's not a positive sign, mostly a reflection of your defense.
No.
And Shamar Stewart's been hurt. So then in addition to the fact that Stewart had all these, you're talking about the contract negotiations with Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Shamar Stewart's contract talks as a first-round pick and how tedious that got for Cincinnati. Well, then he ends up having the ankle injury, has barely played this year, has 2 tackles on the season. So he did return to practice on Wednesday. We'll see what his availability looks like for Sunday. I liked Stewart a lot coming out in the draft, but
sure, a lot of people did.
Point is, though, Mike, again, this is not Cleveland. And one of the points that I raised in some of our commentary and our columns this week is that, yes, they have a game wrecker in Trey Hendrickson. They cannot allow him to wreck the game. Tucker Kraft said, this is a guy that is slippery with his hands. He is smooth. This is a guy that can get after the quarterback if you give him that opportunity. The Packers have to neutralize him. But the pieces around him, unlike the matchup with Cleveland where you had Myles Garrett, it is not nearly as deep and is not as nearly as dangerous.
Yeah, well, let's dive right into our keys to victory for this game. And I'll start because to me, this is very simple. One key thing on each side of the ball. On offense, this game is about finishing drives because the Packers are going to move the football against the Cincinnati defense. They are going to move it. But you can't be settling for field goals. Finish drives, get the touchdowns that you should get against this defense. On the other side of the ball, and I know, and maybe you're going to talk about it, you have a story up on our website about it in terms of the turnovers and stuff with the defense. And I understand the defense wants to get going in that area. To me, that's not necessarily a key in this particular game. To me, this game defensively is about tackling because I think Joe Flacco is going to try to just 3-step drop and get the ball to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on short routes, on just quick stop routes, or they might throw bubble screens, whatever the case might be. Joe Flacco is going to get the ball out of his hands in this game, get it to his weapons, and the Packers have to be on their P's and Q's with the tackling, which I thought for the most part in the first 3 games of the season, there were a couple of plays against Cleveland where the Packers missed some tackles that hurt them. The tackling was definitely not up to the standard against Dallas, and Matt LaFleur had even talked about it, that there were plays where you're looking like, okay, you're in position to make the tackle and make it 2nd and 8, but all of a sudden it's 2nd and 3 because that tackle was missed. Yep. Instead of being in 3rd and 6, it was 3rd and 1 because a tackle was missed. And this happens to even the best defenses all the time. There will be lapses. There will be a game where the tackling just isn't sound. The tackling isn't on point. The Packers have to get back to defensively being the tackling team that they were in the 3 weeks of the season in this game against the Bengals, and I think they'll have and maintain the upper hand against these guys.
Excellent point. And much like you took away my thunder, because I was going to mention, hey, 11 giveaways so far this season for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Sure.
The Green Bay Packers looking to take the ball away more than 2 times than they have the first 2 games.
Sure.
I'm now going to take away your thunder.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of conversation inside the halls of the Packers digital department about what Mike's one last look column might be this week. Okay? And I don't want to give away all the secrets, but I'm just going to allude to a couple things here. And obviously I say that with my tongue firmly placed in my cheek, but the Packers are right now the number 1 ranked third down offense in the National Football League. Do you know, Michael, maybe you already looked into it, where the Cincinnati Bengals rank in third down defense?
I did not look that
They're
up.
29th.
29th.
The Packers' conversion rate is almost higher on third downs as opposed to where the Bengals are trying to stop teams on third downs, which is something you very rarely see. Packers are over 50% right now, 53% on the season. So being able to sustain drives and protect the football are the 2 biggest keys to me to that. However you do it, you do it. There's going to be things on people talking about, hey, you got to get the run game going. Hey, you got to be able to incorporate Matthew Golden. You have to find ways to put points on the board inside the red zone. There's going to be all these things you talk about, but let's be honest here, Mike. How many times did you and I cover high school football games back in the day where you would have one team go in where you felt like they had a significant advantage over the other team, and it really just came down to, hey, don't have a fumble that gets returned for 95 yards. The Cleveland Browns, don't throw an interception back inside your own 40-yard line at a pivotal point in the game.
Yep.
If Green Bay controls the controllables, if they play clean football, they win this football game.
Yep.
It is the more talented team. They are the more successful team right now. And honestly, as difficult as it was going for the Packers into the bye, how bad they felt about that loss in Cleveland and then the tie in Dallas, it pales into comparison of what the Cincinnati Bengals have been going through basically since Joe Burrow went down.
Yeah.
These last 3 weeks have been an absolute slog for them. And the other point I will make, Michael, have you looked at the Cincinnati Bengals record?
2-3.
2-3. Okay, thank you. 2 of those losses. Minnesota Vikings, 48-10. The Detroit Lions, 37-24. Both NFC North opponents.
Yeah.
The Packers ended up being the one that let one get away against the Browns, where
Yep.
the rest of the division took care of it. One big reason the Packers made the playoffs last year and were as successful as they were is because they took care of business in the non-conference slate. This is a home game. You want to defend your turf, but it's also going to be very important to hold serve against the division in these matchups against the corresponding division from the other conference in the crossover games. If you don't do that, that's an easy way to fall behind.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, I want to take a glance at everything else around the league in Week 6, but we'll pay some bills first and hear a word from our sponsors. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Wes, Packers will play the Bengals at 3:25 Central Sunday at Lambeau Field. Some other interesting games around the league. I'll throw these out there at you and let you comment as you see fit. Seattle is at Jacksonville. That's a 3-2 team against a 4-1 Jaguars team coming off of a huge Monday night home win against the Kansas City Chiefs. San Francisco is at Tampa Bay. That's a pair of 4-1 squads going head-to-head there. And then the one that Packers fans will have their eye on, the Detroit Lions are at the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is 2-3. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are up against it here at home against one of the best teams in the league in Detroit coming into Arrowhead Stadium. All 3 of those games, very interesting, and will have implications in terms of the standings and the things Packers fans will be watching moving forward. Your thoughts on any of those?
Kansas City has to bring the lumber in this one. Truly. I mean, when you look at Detroit and what the streak they've been on here the last month, now The other thing about the Chiefs, man, they're always going to be in primetime. They're always going to have everybody watching them.
Yep.
It might have been easier to watch the Chiefs this season just on television than it has been trying to watch the Green Bay Packers covering these teams live. It just seems like wherever I turn, the Chiefs are on television, and they've had some really difficult matchups, and this is going to be another one here. When you look at Detroit and where they're going, and Kansas City is sort of at this crossroads, and it can't all be Patrick Mahomes. In a lot of ways, it kind of the Chiefs this season to me feel a lot like where the Packers were at in like 2015, 2016, where they very clearly have the best quarterback in the game. I mean, this is the Max Verstappen of the National Football League and Patrick Mahomes, but where's the rest of the roster around him? Now, they're hoping they're going to get some reserves throughout the course of the season. They're hoping they're going to have some of these guys coming back and incorporating themselves, but there is not that impenetrability anymore that there once was around Kansas City. So seeing how they match up to Detroit and that deluge of offense that they're going to be thrown up against is going to be interesting. But for me, honestly, the game I'm most excited to see is actually Monday Night Football, and maybe you're going to get there eventually too. But
I was.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Bears returning to the scene of the Hail Mary crime, right?
Yeah.
Out in Washington D.C. against the Commanders. That's been the storyline out of Chicago all week. That was the game that completely turned the Bears' season in the wrong direction.
Yep.
And then 2 months later, Matt Eberflus gets fired. The whole thing, losing on that Hail Mary to Jaden Daniels. Now the Bears are going back into that stadium in prime time now as part of that Monday night doubleheader.
And Daniels and Williams will forever be tied to each other, the same way that Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers were, the same way that I think Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. I mean, this list goes on and on of those 1-2 picks. Their destinies are always going to somewhat feel aligned. So for them to see each other 2 times in their first 2 seasons, I think is really telling as well. And Daniels appears to be fine here. Came through last week, I think, all right, after initially that hiccup that I think came out of the Green Bay game. Was it the knee or whatnot?
Yeah,
that he had?
it was a knee.
He got the thing back on. Washington is such a different team when he's out there.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%.
You just see how everything is really built around him. So seeing how they hold up against Chicago is going to be really fascinating to watch. And meanwhile, Chicago, who started the season about as badly as you could start it in the Ben Johnson era, it just shows you how quickly tides can change, how different momentum can feel when you go into the bye at 2-2. But at the same time, you had 2 wins that made you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting slate of games. I want to ask you, so barring an overtime tie, which of course we saw between the Packers and the Cowboys, San Francisco and Tampa Bay, one of those teams is going to be 5-1. You got a prediction on which one gets to 5-1 between those two?
I think Tampa Bay's scrappy, man.
It's hard to bet against Baker Mayfield at this point.
And
it really is.
And if you're telling me Tampa's at home, San Francisco's making the cross country flight, I said it I think on the show 2 weeks ago with what has happened there. I really did not think the transition from Bruce Arians was going to go very well for Tampa.
Yeah.
I thought that, to me, in my mind, I thought that was going to be the end of the Peyton Manning, Von Miller era in Denver. And then, Gary Kubiak's gone, everything, and everything just sort of slips away. And they've refortified themselves, and they did it in a very unconventional way. Mm-hmm. Yes, they've drafted well, but they also signed players and acquired players that in ways that typically you don't see in the NFL anymore, particularly, again, with the Baker Mayfield situation. A guy that was signing and playing with the L.A. Rams at the end of the year, trying to get his career back on track.
Right.
And now, he's the talk of the town, the toast of the town. And I don't know if you saw Mayfield's comments this week, but oh my goodness, I loved it when they were asking him about Seattle and him jawing with the fan as he was coming on the field. And he mentioned how, early in his career, people would have probably painted that as him being immature or bratty or something like that. Now he's a dog. Now it's, he's got moxie.
Yeah, he's the competitor.
It all just depends on the way media frames things. But if
Yep.
you just focus on what you're doing, and he said that's what he didn't do earlier in his career, it's allowed him to be a Pro Bowl quarterback in this league. And as I said on Tuesday's show, someone that I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be able to hitch their wagons to for a very long time. It's an exciting slate of games for sure. And seeing exactly if the Buccaneers can really pull away within that division, this is a great opportunity to do so.
That's the thing, is I'm wondering if anybody in the NFC South is really going to challenge Tampa Bay. And as much as we've seen Tampa Bay's defense struggle, but with the combination of kind of Baker Mayfield's last-minute heroics and the fact that as much as that defense has struggled at times, it's a defense that seems to make a play in a big
Yes.
moment, which goes a long way in this league. I've said this for a long time. If you're not going to be the 2000 Baltimore Ravens defense or the 1985 Chicago Bears defense, be a defense that can make a big play in a big moment. And that's kind of seems like what Todd Bowles is building defensively in Tampa, and it could continue to carry them. So I think that's a squad that definitely bears watching.
They take on his identity too, don't they? Like that's what was fun about the Arians and Bowles relationship is Bowles is just such a dichotomy from Arians and how he's more introverted. He's more cerebral. He's got sort of the stoic, almost like Bill Belichick kind of like demeanor when he speaks to the media. But he's so consistent.
Yeah.
And you can see, again, why Arians was so high on him as not only a coordinator but as a head coach and a guy that should get a second chance at that opportunity in the National Football League, and he's really ran with it. Meanwhile, San Francisco, if we'll see what the week shuffles out at. I don't think Brock Purdy's practicing yet. I know Mac Jones is banged up now too, right?
Yeah, we'll see if the mini bye did them some help. After playing on Thursday last week, they get a little bit of extra time. But yeah, San Francisco still kind of seems like a banged up team, but on a short week last Thursday, they still were able to chalk up a big division win against the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi. So you definitely can't count Kyle Shanahan out either, no matter what the matchup.
5 teams in the NFC right now with 1 loss.
Yeah,
that's it. As much as it stinks for Green Bay to only have 2 wins, but it's still 5 teams with 1 loss. At what Mike Spofford used to refer to as the quarter pole.
I don't get to say that anymore.
What would it be?
Because there's 17 teams.
4 out of 17 or 5 out of 7.
4 1/4 would be literally
4 1/4 pole.
Yeah. So
we'll use that from now on. Does that work?
All right. I think with that, we need to call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team and of Sunday's game against the Bengals at Lambeau Field. We will have it all for you on Packers.com. For Wes, I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.